Welcome, everybody, to are we in, Teresa? We're recording. Okay. Welcome to the work session for the Morgan City Planning Commission, January 20th, 2026. Just a reminder for everyone that this is live streamed on YouTube and a recording will be available on morganutah.gov. We only have one item on our work session agenda tonight, which is training on the Open and Public Meetings Act. So annual training. So with that, we will turn the time over to Gary.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This is the miserable part of your obligations, and that is to listen to a lawyer for an hour and talk about open meetings. And actually, what we want to do, there are three areas that they'd like us to train on. First is open public meetings. Second is conflicts of interest, and the third is sexual harassment. So we're going to try and cover all of those as quickly as possible, and hopefully it will be quickly. But before we started, I thought, sometimes we don't have time at the end for any meetings that you might have, or any questions that you might have in a meeting. And so we want to make sure that you have time to ask those questions. And so are there any questions that you might have had from past meetings or anything that has come to mind that we may be able to answer for you?
Pretty straightforward.
You've been here a long time, so it's probably true. Some of you have been here longer than others, right? And so this is going to be old stuff for you. Some of you have been here since pretty beginning with your problems, so let's get it go right.
I'm talking about Tony.
Lance really this week went on, but they were. Okay, I want to get this presentation.
I've got a picture of the first one in Littleton if you'd like it.
Why do you?
You know what? I do actually have a question, Gary.
In the agenda meeting? Yeah. You can search for Teresa,
Sorry, technology.
Oh, there. Did you find it? Yeah. Maybe go look first. No, not it. Keep going. Yes.
First lesson is how to use Zoom. And then how to add to Zoom.
Now lock. Turn those off. Get that and video.
I got Jerry. It looks like we got David online too, so thank you.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Okay, do you have yours on?
No.
Okay.
I don't need it. And then hit share. Oh, the other thing I do is turn down the volume here.
Okay.
Yep, now share. Then we can go to your presentation.
Okay, I need to go to, let's see. How do I find it? See
Is
right
it
here.
PowerPoint?
Yep, it's, well,
You could just open up PowerPoint and probably be there.
okay.
That's it right there. Behind.
Oh,
Now it disappeared. Go back to your folder.
okay.
That's it right there, isn't it?
Mhm.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. That'll work.
Chair, did you want to welcome Chris, our new council member?
Yes, I was gonna do that actually in the open meeting, but I will.
Okay.
Or in the meeting.
Either way.
But welcome, Chris. We are very excited to have you. And welcome to those joining us online as well.
Okay.
Gary,
So-
actually, I do have a quick question before we jump in, if I could ask.
Yeah, I apologize for the
Oh,
delay.
no, you're good.
This is
That's it.
the slideshow.
Oh,
Slideshow?
yeah, that one right there.
Okay,
So we've talked in the past about avoiding ex parte communication when there's an item that is on the agenda or something that is potentially up before the commission. But what about when there is not any specific action and people just want to talk planning policy in general? Is it best practice to avoid those discussions, or is that okay?
so my take on it is that if you've got an application pending before you, you don't want to talk about that. But if you just want to talk generally about planning, there's no reason why you shouldn't just be talking about general planning principles and, things that are common to all of you, concerns that you might all have. Types of housing, locations for housing, general plan. I mean, that's really what we're looking for is we're looking for your input as part of the community into the planning process. However, when it becomes an application or something pending before you, you want all of you to be able to hear the same thing. And if all of you can hear the same thing at the same time, that's the best case scenario, because one of you is not going to get caught off guard. I've had situations where an individual on a council or a commission, where the person stands up and says, well, you remember that meeting you and I had, Aaron, back of the church, you remember that? And we talked about this and you said, and that's the problem that occurs, especially for planning commission. City council is a little different because they were elected to listen to the people. And so, but at the same time, city council should follow the same rule, which is, yes, but I don't take a position on something that is before me. You should come to the meeting and share that with the entire council, and that's the best answer. Does that help a little?
Yes,
little bit?
thank you.
Yeah,
Gary, also it would be appropriate if I add, maybe if it's conversations general, that's fine and good. If it's project specific, probably not as much.
mhm.
No, meaning, hey, what about this property? What are you gonna be doing there, this property? Because that means an application is coming and they're positioning themselves and also weighing in on you. But if it's general planning, like what are we gonna do with the downtown, or when are we gonna get another park, or, you know, how do young people buy a house these days?
Mhm.
It's different.
Yeah, those general questions, application-specific questions you should try and avoid. So, the Open Meetings Act, how many of you were able to get online to the website? No, okay, I appreciate, you got your certificate. I'm sure you got them framed by now, but I'm just checking.
Laminated.
Everybody got a framed certificate. Would you guys make sure that you bring that to Teresa? Okay, very good. And, oh, great, that works. Yeah, that works. And the reason I do that is because that's really what they require anyway. Is they, if you've ever dealt with the auditor's office up on the Hill, they're very particular. And if it's not their idea, it's not a good idea. I didn't say that, but literally, that's the case. And so if you take their course on open meetings, you're good. That's considered training, and you're required every single year to have that training. And the mayor can actually be put in jail if he deliberately does not do that, if he does not deliberately do something that he's required to do under the Open Meetings Act, and training is one of those things. So if you want to see the mayor eat breakfast in another place, that's what you do. Just don't turn your certificate in. Also, before we start, speaking of the auditor's office, there's a little thing called the ethical behavior pledge. And the ethical behavior pledge just simply says, that you're going to be ethical in the administration of your duties. This is another item that is not required by state law, but which is very important to the state auditor. And so we want to make sure you just read it, fill it out, and we'll keep a copy of that at the conclusion of the meeting. And we'll put that in your file as well. So let's talk about open meetings. You've gone through the training, so I just want to give you some best practices regarding open meetings and maybe address some issues that you're probably going to come across as you put your duties into play. And I'll let you look at that for a second and sign it and get that out of the way. So-
Want me to pick them up too?
Sure, that'd be great. Awesome. The Open Meetings Act came about as a result of the concept that government needs to be done openly, where the people can all hear what you're doing and see what you're doing, and nothing is more open than the Planning Commission. Because you can't even close a meeting to discuss something behind closed doors. The council has the ability to do that under certain circumstances. They can do the what?
The bottom, some of them sign the bottom part too.
That's okay. As long as it's signed, I'm okay.
We're good.
And he'll be okay.
Teresa can sign it again.
So the city council can close meetings. You can't close meetings, which is kind of interesting. Even the state legislature can actually go into a closed meeting, and they do this often under the premise of a caucus, a party caucus. And it is always a closed meeting, and they don't allow anybody else in, and they make the decisions as to what bills are going to be passed, how they're going to vote. Everything is decided in those closed meetings up on the Hill. But you, as a planning commission, don't even have that opportunity to deliberate behind closed doors. Those meetings belong to the elected officials, I guess, is the concept. And so one of the very first experiences I had with open meetings happened up here in Colville. And I remember being hired by a guy that wanted to develop, as you came, that road that comes from goes up to Park City, that have all of the stores on and everything else, the discount center. Where my wife shops a lot. I should know what the name of it is, but anyway. Outlets, yes.
Frontage.
That's sends chills up and down my spine. Think about that term, but anyway, outlets. He wanted to put a bed and breakfast up there, and they had form-based zoning that they had just put in place in the county, in Summit County. And so I remember traveling up there and representing him before the county commission of 3. There are 3 county commissioners at that time. And when I got up there, they had their planner pull a copy of a master plan that was not on any website anywhere, because that was prior to the time of websites, but it was found in the attic in the court buildings that they had in the old courthouse that they had up there in Colville. And they brought that down, and there were 3 of them. And I remember they were all looking over this master plan, and they were all discussing the master plan. And my client and myself were just sitting there watching this whole thing take place, wondering what they were saying about our application. And they got all the way to the end of the meeting. I think it was the end of the meeting, because they stopped talking amongst each other. And then they took a vote against my client's project. And I still remember thinking, what part of all of this should we have had in being able to talk to you about our application? But they continued to speak and speak amongst themselves. That, in my opinion, is the equivalent of a closed meeting. If you on the dais, talk to your neighbor next to you, and you're talking back and forth. And it may be very legitimate, and it may be about what you had for dinner that night. But the appearance is that you're talking about something to do with the applications that are on the agenda. And so during the meeting, this is during the meeting, before and after, you're fine. But during the meeting, try not to converse between each other. The other thing is that by state law, you actually can't text each other during the meeting either, because that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. They discovered that oftentimes you're texting, how are you going to vote on this? And that type of thing. And that would be, does that make sense that that would be unacceptable?
No secret combinations.
No secret combinations. They won't let you
At
do that.
planning commission. City council is okay.
And the legislature's extra okay. They'll-
Yeah.
They're extra.
Don't you have a phone that accepts text messages?
I'm encouraged that it's not a flip phone, but those are coming back in, so. Refrain, just a second, I gotta move this because I guess I can look up here.
Here, just do, there you go. Is that what you want?
Yeah. So I like this one. All those that are in favor of what was discussed in our email
Email
thread at Larry's son's birthday party, say aye. And so just to emphasize again that texting is not good. Texting while you're at the dais is not good. We had one lobbyist that used to lobby our council all the time in Layton. And he would sit in the audience and you could see him doing his little thing. And then 3 out of 4 of the council will all be looking at their phones at the same time. And then they'd look up and he'd do it again. All 3 would look down at the same time. So you knew that there was something going on. And so, you know, anything that involves the use of your cell phone while you're on the dais is probably inappropriate. Okay, any other questions regarding open meetings? Our staff take care of the advertising. They take care of if somebody comes in with a camera and wants to film everything that you're doing, can they do that under the Open Meetings Act? Yeah, it's up to them. Good, Chris. Yeah, you can do that. And we've had them do that before. And it's a little intimidating, but they're allowed to do that.
There's the guy in Cache Valley that goes to planning commission and city council and sets up a tripod and camera and films every single meeting. Even though they do the same thing here in terms of recording online and it's publicly available.
Which you wonder now because everything's on YouTube anyway, right? You
Yeah.
can go back and listen to this meeting. It's recorded and it's online. I just had a thought. Okay,
Gary?
the minutes, I'm sorry, Dave?
Yeah, just a question before we leave open meetings. In the training there, one of the questions that were asked, it talked about having a quorum of either the commission or the council together. But and this is probably worthy of noting, but the law carves out an exception for casual meetings. For example, it said if all of you went to the same church, or 4 of you went to the same church out of 5, or 3 out of 5, whatever, would somebody have to find a different church? That was the question. Is that new, or has that always been the case?
No, it's always been the case, but here's a little tidbit of information that you need to know. That 3 of you can be together in the parking lot, or 4 of you in this case, can be together in the parking lot, and you can be talking about all kinds of things. But if the meeting is not convened to discuss or take a vote on an issue that is before you, it's not considered in a meeting. So that's the key, you're not in a meeting just because the 4 of you are together, the 4 planning commissioners together. It has to be convened for a purpose. Convened for the purpose of taking a vote or discussing an item on the application. Chance meetings, social meetings, those types of things are expressly excluded
Yeah.
on
in the.
But meeting
the
up
code.
for breakfast to talk about planning commission, that would be a no. But you see each other at a soccer game and you start talking. But you probably shouldn't talk about pending applications.
Right, again, not about pending applications.
Talk about
Um,
soccer.
Yeah, good clarification. Thank you.
Can I raise the issue of meeting minutes as well? What are the official minutes of your meeting here? Are they the recordings that Teresa makes? Are they the written minutes that you get? If I go to court over an issue regarding the planning commission, what minutes would I use? What would be the official minutes? Do you know? Okay, all of the above? The verbal recordings may be useful and going back and looking at, at what was said. But ultimately, what the official minutes of the meeting are the written minutes, of the meeting. And
They're approved now.
that's correct, that are approved. Pending minutes, they can be given out, but they're not official and they're not what I would use if I went to court with them. Those meeting minutes, it's very important that you read them over and make sure that whatever you said was correct and that you've stated it the way that you wanted to state it. The other thing that's very important is when you take a vote, one of the most important things for me as an attorney, and what I look for and what the judge looks for ultimately in a case that involves you, the Planning Commission for Morgan City, would be what you said in support of the motion. The court will look at the entire transcript or the entire minutes of a meeting and allow me to pull out things that you said that supported your decision and your vote. But the best thing for me a lot of times, and the best thing for the city, is whenever they ask for a motion, a motion, you get the motion and you get the second, and then you get discussion on the second. And if you take a minute to explain your vote, that is extremely helpful because and onto the minutes, the written minutes of that meeting, come your reasons for what you voted for. And there's no question as to why you voted the way you did, especially on administrative decisions that you make, which are subdivisions and other things. If you're denying a subdivision because they don't meet this, say that. Minutes that go to the zoning, a zoning decision, very important that you show that there was a rational basis for what you were deciding or the motion that you made. The person that's making the motion is most important for me when I'm looking at it. But the others that voted for that motion also are very important to me. And if there's a negative vote, make sure you put that on the record. So those minutes, those written minutes are extremely important. Go over them carefully and make sure they properly reflect what you've actually said. Any other questions regarding open meetings? And then we'll go to conflicts of interest. I'm going to just give you a one-page handout. Would you?
Yeah, I can do that.
Give me the first page. Just for, okay. This just gives you an overview of conflicts of interest. In the state of Utah, conflicts of interest are self-declared. In other words, the chair of the meeting is not going to point out the fact that Chris over here had a conversation with somebody that and has a conflict as a result of that conversation because he's going to take, lunch and a game with the Jazz or something in exchange for for the vote that he's giving, which would never happen.
So the next year.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And it may not, well, the jury's out on that as to whether or not it would really have value, but anyway. But it's a self-declaring state. So you declare yourself if you feel that you have a conflict of interest. And the rule of thumb is that if you feel that you can't make an unbiased decision because of some pecuniary benefit or some benefit to you and your family, you or an immediate family member, then you're probably in a situation where you ought to recuse yourself. And my advice to most councils and planning commissions is when you recuse yourself, you actually leave the room and just say, I have a conflict of interest. My son-in-law owns a piece of the business that's actually coming before you for approval. And so I'm gonna leave and let you make that decision. Quite frankly, you've been really, really good at this over the years. Some of Jeff Wardell, his company does a lot of work, you know, on roads and that type of thing. And there are times when he has stepped out of the room simply because Morgan was looking at contracts that involved his company or may involve his company. Now, what about just general benefits to everybody? Does that constitute a conflict? Like, for example, you go down to the 4th of July celebrations or something other, and they're giving out free certificates for meals and that type of thing. No, just general benefits do not count as a pecuniary benefit to you. But the famous instance of a benefit to somebody comes through the mayor and the city manager. We were sitting at lunch at Taggart's, and you want to tell them what happened, Mayor?
God, Dawson, get ready to tie. Course me into going to lunch, which I never do. And we were
It was a
sitting there,
business lunch, but
it was a business lunch. We were talking about some issues and some items in the city, coming up with the city and some things to plan and so in there. And it happened to be two gentlemen that own a business here in town that came in to eat Taggart's as well. And as they were there eating, we said, hello, and how are you? I tell high school, I've known them for years, the guys for years, and they've been, you know. And then we went to leave. The waitress told us that our bill had already been paid for. We didn't know anything. But what? We found out that those two gentlemen, they'd paid our bill for us. They were innocent. They didn't know they were doing anything wrong. And, you know, so it didn't matter whether we were talking about their project or not. That was still, you know, we should, you know, they shouldn't have done that. And we, about the backside, rectified that. And, you know, I'm pretty sure they, you know, paid them back and told them, thank you, but don't do it again for us.
that's right. So I thought that was pretty good because on the back of a napkin, we were actually talking about their project. The mayor was drawing it out and we were talking about some of the issues involved. They didn't know that, but anyway. So another instance, just to show you how easy it is sometimes to get into those situations where you get a benefit from the position that you're in. We had a public works employee up in Layton that had a car, used to show these antique cars all over the place. And there was a contractor that we had done business with several times in Layton City that did business with the Public Works Department that said, I've got an old trailer. Would you like to, you know, I can fix it up a little bit and you can use that to haul your cars. And unfortunately, that resulted in disciplinary action for that employee simply because it's a conflict of interest for employees as well to be taking things from people that the city will do business. So what do you do? Well, there's three situations that you're going to be involved in where you have to declare something. Number one is if you have a business in the city, and you're running a business in the city, you should write that down as one of the areas where there may be a conflict. There doesn't exist one now, but there may be a conflict if you own a business in the city. The second is where you work for a business that does business with the city. And so not where you own it and it's yours, but just simply, you know, you work for a title company in Salt Lake, and that title company does most of the work for the city. That would be a conflict, even though that is in Salt Lake. Those types of relationships, they present a problem where you may have a pecuniary benefit in the outcome of a situation. And so you watch for those. And the last one is where you're doing business with the city. That one's a little bit peculiar because in that one, you're required to actually disclose in the meeting where the decision is being made regarding whatever you're selling to the city, even if it's your partner that's standing there making the arrangements with the city. You have to declare to the mayor of the city, or in this case, to the chair, that you have a conflict of interest and explain what that conflict of interest is, and probably recuse yourself at that point. The other thing is that they require every year, they require that you fill these conflict of interest forms out. And if you have a business that you do business with, we identify those 3 situations in here. And if you don't, just put not applicable, sign the bottom and put it in. But they-
Gary, what if, planning commissioner were actually the applicant, you know? They wanted to get a conditional use for something like that. Obviously, they need to recuse themselves and vote on it, but could they still be the applicant?
What do you think?
Yes.
Can you be the applicant and vote?
Oh, I didn't say it, vote.
Can you be you were just saying the applicant, but not vote?
Yes,
You'd step down from the
you'd step
dais?
down
Oh,
and
of
be
course.
and be the
Yeah.
applicant.
Do you agree that you could do that? You can, otherwise you'd never be able to develop in a city. That's a really
Yeah.
good, very good.
And there's, you know, there's things that happen and you live and.
So the question on that
There's a
is,
difference between being an ongoing developer and being on the planning commission and being like, I want to do an ADU or something like that.
right, yeah. So ex parte communications, what we talked about just a few minutes ago, would be extremely important in that situation, right? Because where you're talking to the other planning commissioners about many different things, to talk to them about your project would not be appropriate. Would not be appropriate. So some of you have been in neighborhoods too, and I know, Becky, you live up near where one of the projects is on the agenda right now. There's a lot of pressure, especially when it is your neighborhood and it's you. What are you able to talk about? And is that a conflict of interest simply because you live in a neighborhood? Should you declare that? And
No,
the answer is no. Yeah, you're right. It's not a conflict unless it's a pecuniary benefit that you're receiving. In other words, something tangible, something
financial.
financial, or if they were to say to you, you know what, if you approve this, your son gets a job with our outfit. Once again, that's a tangible benefit that would be offered to you. But just the fact that you're a citizen in that area, does that create a conflict for you? It does not. No. Now, what about if you wanted to talk to the issue that is before you to be discussed? Can you say, I want to step down, I want to talk about this issue? And what's the answer to that? What do you think the answer to that would be? In other words, I'm really concerned about this application. I want to talk as Joe citizen about this application. I'm not pointing at you or directing it to you, but just generally, what do you think, you guys?
Was reading the conflict of interest form, but I think there's a time for public comments, and you would put on your public hat and you'd say, I want to go make public comments, and you'd walk up there like a public comment of the people down there or something.
So if it was pertaining to an application that was pending before you as a planning commission official, it would be very difficult for you to step down from the dais and
Come back
and change your hat.
and be proper.
Yeah, an elected official is always an elected official, and a planning commissioner, you're always a planning commissioner, even when you're not acting as one. I mean, from the public perspective, I don't think you can split the two when it's pending a vote and weighing in on an issue. You just can't.
Can I raise an issue too? Because in every meeting you have a city council people. And they add to your meeting sometimes, right? And what are they allowed to and not allowed to do you think, pertaining to an application that might be pending before them? Say a zone change application.
They couldn't recommend to us how to, you know, to sway a vote or anything. This is what the council would do, so you should vote like this. They can't do that.
Perfect.
But they, you know, they could communicate.
We should have approved it.
That's exactly right. I think when it's pending application, the council should be quiet. When it's training or discussion or big picture planning, participate.
Okay,
That,
okay. Yes, if you are showing or going to show a bias, and your question is not just a general question, they often ask general questions. I've heard Ty ask general questions. But if you're pushing the planning commission one direction or another, not fair, right? They should not be pushing you one direction, exactly what you just said. Don't push in one direction or another.
So Gary, you're very generous. You said the council member may add to the meeting. They may detract also.
I never discard that idea, but not this council. They do.
All right.
I think there's more onus on us as city council when it comes to planning meetings to really just be more of a spectator and you know, interested, all of just an interested observer, but when things have changed,
If I were to give you advice one way or another, that would probably be the advice I'd give, is to just listen. Because you'll have an opportunity, if it's coming to you, to talk to the issue. You know, so.
and how does that vary if it's not a pending application? Let's say we're talking zoning ordinance. Does that matter? Or general plan? They still get their opportunity no matter what with those two items.
Now, the planning commission, you're gonna talk as much as you want about that issue, right? And so talk away, and it doesn't matter, Jay, to your point, you don't need to step down from the dais to give your opinion as a planning commissioner on something. Provided you don't have that pecuniary benefit, you can say whatever you want in these meetings. That's what you're here for. Council's a little different in that these applications, when they come from you to them, are actually going to have to make those decisions. And can they put pressure on you one way or another? Yeah, they can. And so if it's a general subject, such as master plan, zoning, generally, densities, yeah, talk about it. Talk about the way you feel, you know, about densities and how they ought to be placed. But if it's an application that's before you for a rezone of a parcel of property, I wouldn't say a word. That would be the case. Right.
The time that I would like some conversation from them would be if there's something we're discussing we don't have the answer to. And through their, they had an answer to it that already happened. For example, we're talking about parks, we don't know anything about them. They say, oh, or Jay's pretty good on this. We're in progress of doing this fishing park. If they have some information that we're not aware of, they could mention information as an information item, I believe.
Right.
I think that'd be appropriate.
And the same applies with you. The reason you sit on the planning commission is because you have information. Sometimes you're the only one that has that information. I've seen individuals who know about water lines or ditches or, you know, that are on properties that have been in their neighborhood that they've lived in for 30 years. And it's perfectly acceptable for you to bring things that you know personally into the conversation. So, Councilman Dave raised a good question the other day. And that is, if somebody raises an issue in one of your planning meetings, such as, you know what, there's too much traffic on this street, it won't handle any more traffic. Or kids are getting killed, you know, this is a horrible place to put this type of a project. Can we continue the meeting so that we can get more information on that? And the bottom line is, if you don't feel you have enough information, yes, but if you've got a city engineer, your experts who have already opined on those issues, then a lot of times what you're doing is you're doing the same thing a judge does. You're weighing the evidence in front of you. And if somebody gets up and just says, too much traffic on that street, and on the other side, you've got the city engineer that says the capacity of this road, it's not even a quarter of what it could be, then you've got some pretty heavy evidence on the other side that this isn't true and this isn't correct. So would it be right to continue the meeting to allow them to go get an engineer to come in. No, the hearing is the time for them to come in and show whatever they've got. Now, if they bring an engineer in, maybe you do want to delay the meeting a little bit so that you can compare notes between the two engineers. But typically what you're going to get is you are the ones that weigh that evidence. And you're going to have to give it some weight as you hear people get up. And if it's a thing called public clamor, which is the famous Davis County case, the courts will say, you know what, you shouldn't have listened to that. That was, if it's not based in any evidence of any sort, it's just loose statements. You got your police chief saying there's no problem with this, haven't been any accidents on that street, and you got your engineer who's telling you that there's plenty of capacity. So you'd have the weight of evidence would be in favor of not, you don't say that to the individual. Sorry, what you're saying is garbage and we're not going to listen to that. That doesn't go over well. But that's where the chair gets to step in and say, you know what, we've heard comments on this. We're ready to go on to the next issue, whatever it is. And the chair plays a big part in moving the meeting forward. Any other questions? Any questions on conflicts of interest? Any other questions? And
Business owner in the city, and you would want to list that as a possible conflict. You have some
Mhm.
sort of interest in the business.
yes. Yeah, you would. I always list the business that I'm in as a conflict of interest or as a possible conflict of interest. And I've had a couple of times, even where I was city attorney for Layton, that there was a conflict, for example, with the burn plant. There were some issues there that where Morgan and Layton didn't agree entirely on what was going on. So, there's always a possibility of a conflict if you ever do business in Morgan, or if you own a business in Morgan, or if you own a business that does business in Morgan.
Got an example.
Okay.
So my business is just my home address because I'm a realtor. I own my own real estate company.
Yes. Yeah.
But I feel like it's more regulated by division of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that? I usually just say I'm a realtor. But I don't say here's my company name and all that stuff. Do you think that would be appropriate to say I own this professional corporation, an address of my house?
I believe that would be enough. That's enough. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
enough.
and it doesn't hold you or hurt you back from being on the planning commission at all, I would say. The only thing is that obviously if you were ever an agent on a specific property that came before the planning commission,
You've run into that before.
then you would recuse and you'd be fine.
Or try to skip those meetings.
The interesting one is Chris, who is currently the temporary fire marshal for the county. And the question came up as to whether that would be a conflict with him sitting on the planning commission. What do you think? Sorry, Chris, I'm putting you on the spot.
I think it is, because there could be a case where fire marshal says this project is okay and safe or not okay and safe. Cause we talked to the fire marshal. And then it comes to the planning commission and it's okay or not okay for different reasons.
Mhm.
So you just have to separate the two.
In that case, Chris could wear separate hats because he's not getting paid per. There's nothing in Chris's decision regarding, you may have very strong feelings about whether that road's adequate for a large fire truck. He would bring that information. It's just like any of you bringing information that you know into the planning commission meeting. You all consider it. He may be the only one that votes against the application because of that, or it may affect all of you, but there's not a pecuniary interest that he has in doing that. So he would not have a conflict and he can safely serve. And we think that's a good thing. Let's just, in the last 8 minutes, if I'm willing to discuss that as long as you want to. So. And we've gone over that, so. Okay, sexual harassment. Why do we bring that to your attention? The reason that sexual harassment is such a big deal is because the biggest lawsuits that have been filed in the state and some of the biggest recoveries that have been made have been because of sexual harassment and that has occurred in the workplace. The different kinds of sexual harassment, the one that's most common is what's called a quid pro quo or something for something. But there's another kind that's a little more insidious than that. And that is situations where somebody's ridiculed, mistreated, or irritated based on sex, gender, race, or color, religion, national origin, excuse me, genetic information, age, that type of thing. Why would this be important to discuss with a planning commission? Where might you run into this? Do you think?
The applicant is standing in front of you.
I've seen applicants be very demeaning to individuals of the opposite sex. I've actually seen that in the courtroom, which really bothered me. I had a female prosecutor for years and she was awesome. She convicted everybody, but she was really, really good. But, you know, I happened to notice that there were some attorneys that would treat her in a demeaning manner to the point where she was uncomfortable with what they call her sweetheart and this type of thing. Those are the types of things that the city can be sued for. Comments which would not be made by this planning commission, but I have heard a chair of a planning commission refer to somebody as dear and go a little further because every single statement he made back to this person who was making the application, he was a realtor, and it was demeaning in the way that he was treating her, talking down to her, that type of thing. Those types of things are things that essentially should be killed in the culture of your community, and they are. Here in Morgan, I can tell you that any allegation of mistreatment or harassment will be examined very, very closely, and we'll address that. Who do you report it to if you see it happening? Do you know? Because this is important.
For us,
Mm-hmm.
if we see it,
Mm-hmm.
then we should probably be taught to the staff member
Okay.
or the planning commission.
Yeah, that's a good answer. The answer in Morgan is anybody who you feel comfortable in going to. So it could be Teresa, and Teresa then would report it to Ty, and Ty would report it to me. If it involves Ty, then you're welcome to come to me or to the mayor. If it involves the mayor, come to me or come to Ty. But somebody that you feel comfortable with. One of the questions I have is what happens when you observe it's happening? It's not happening to you, but you see somebody else going through that. You see somebody demeaning to Teresa at the front counter, and does that ever happen? No. You know, but I'm sure she can tell you many different instances where that might have happened, where somebody hasn't been happy with her. But if it's based, if their comments are based on her gender or her race, color, religion, those types of things, do you have an obligation to step in and help with those situations? Report them at least?
I think if you feel comfortable,
least.
you should at least bring it up to them to try to defuse the situation and document it.
Yes.
That way you could use your resources to pursue it upon your recommendation.
I think you're on the hook if you're there involved.
The only caveat I would give is you want the situation to be as safe as possible for everyone involved. If you feel unsafe or if she is unsafe, maybe just removing yourselves from the situation is ideal, but then reporting.
Right. Yeah, good point. If it puts her in danger or in a position where she's going to receive more of the same, then hold off. But if you feel it's right to intervene, go ahead and do that. You know what? That probably wasn't appropriate. You know, most people will acknowledge that. But if you got an angry person at the front counter who's being very demeaning, best to just let it de-escalate, and these guys do a great job of doing that every day. And then report it later. Important to report it. One of the biggest cases, was a retaliation case. So once it's reported, retaliation is worse than the original case usually, and provides for, a higher judgment. West Jordan, a police officer out there, happened to be harassed repeatedly. Sexual comments about him and his prowess and this, that, and the other thing. They did find, a lower court found that he was harassed. They gave him $250,000 in damages and put him back on the job again. Subsequently, the police department, members of the police department harassed him further because of the report and because of the judgment and because of those things. He received a judgment of $2.2 million as a result of the recurring harassment that occurred, the retaliation. So, I mean, it's really important in an organization. And that's what I love about Ty, is he does jump on these things right away. If he knows about them, he jumps on it. And that's the key to not paying large judgments, is watching for it and reporting it immediately. So, any other questions regarding sexual harassment? You probably hear a lot about it in the workplace. It's really tough when it's a family member that you know is being harassed at work, or something like that. Then you realize that it's real and that this really does happen out there. And it's tough, but watch for it, and it shouldn't exist. So if it does, let us know. Any other questions? Or 7 o'clock on the news, so won't go any farther. Thank you. Thank you for tolerating.
Do we need a brief break? Everybody okay? Oh, but just. 3 minutes.
What do you want a business entity in the city? She did list that.
Do you get paid for it?
No, I'm just on the board of directors of the little credit union over here. Have been for a while, but it's inside the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what I would
Probably heard.
I would put it down.
Yeah.
The reason is this.
Yeah.
You don't get paid, but if they send you somewhere, or if they give you a gift for Christmas, whichever one they do, they can do anything.
Yeah.
Those are considered, you're getting a benefit for being there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so,
It's not gonna hurt, that's for sure.
yeah, no.
I mean, it's a volunteer position, obviously, on the credit.
Yeah.
But I mean, we do get some, dinners and a few things like that as a board member. But I thought about that over the years. I thought, maybe that's
One thing I really appreciate is that most of the conflicts of interest were declared by you. I don't remember all of them, but I remember a number of them. Declared by- So. Yeah, I remember that. That's the one that came to my mind. Yes. Yeah. But that's what I appreciate. in those kinds of things.
I didn't use this word called strong.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly it. How does it look? Yeah, you're right.
Is what I'm
Exactly right. So.
Trees that are bigger than space.
And it's in that same code that.
Oh, okay.
Good job.
So Katie Ellis.
Oh, yes.
I worked with, I think we stole her from.
You did. Yeah, you
She
did.
was the best code enforcement
But it's.
That is-
attorney that I have ever worked with.
That is awesome.
I think Ted
That
is
is
Absolutely smart.
you're smiling.
She
at me.
did that late, and she was really good.
Been there,
I
done
wish
that, haven't we?
that I'd been able to keep her. Wasn't just a couple of months that they increased the salaries for. I could have probably kept her, but she's awesome. Yeah, I love her. She's in Kaysville now. You knew that?
I figured that she would
Yeah.
have left.
Yes.
I know that it made it pretty tough on her.
Yeah.
They when the new mayor came in, kinda took code enforcement a little more maybe in on him. It's one of the reasons that that's when I started working on my.
Oh, yeah.
The new mayor came in, she did sales. Grow. And then I'm not still.
Oh,
It just, I was like.
so my hometown, starting in Layton. Yeah, really cool. This Wednesday night, they're getting together again. But they've had a couple of projects this last summer and that was the best, that is the best program. And you did wonders.
Get ready to start out.
Are you up in Morgan?
So
Oh, great.
I just, they called me to do. Can we get started?
Oh, good.
I'm still doing my own thing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's neat. You guys did such a good job. Those projects up there were, and I realize you fueled a lot of that, so
It goes the battle.
Linda was involved, but you knew her, right? She ran for council, just barely missed it. So I thought she would have been awesome in that because she knows so much about it. And so she ran into some difficulties with the new administration as well. Yeah. That form of government lends to that strong mayor. Because you get a new, like here you've got the city manager, keeps things same generation. Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it takes what the council says and runs with their orders, but you don't get a mayor that comes in and says, throw the bums out, throw everybody out. Doesn't matter how much experience they've had. I've got a friend that wants to take that position over there. And that's the thing I hate about the strong mayors. So,
You know, sometimes you.
yeah.
You do things. Then you see it on the ground.
Right. We're glad we got you up here. That's good. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Oh, are you really? Becky's awesome.
Okay, welcome everyone to the January 20th City Planning Commission General Session. We want to welcome all who are attending here in person and online. Thank you for being with us tonight. Before we jump into the agenda items, I just wanted to give a little bit of information, just acknowledge that Mark Francis and Jay Ackett have both agreed to serve another term with us, so we appreciate them and their service. But Nathan McClellan has stepped down, so he wrote a really nice letter to the mayor, and I hope you don't mind, I wanted to read just a little of it. He said, "This year would have been my 12th year on the commission, and I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the opportunity to serve our city. I am grateful for the progress the city has made, the direction it is going, and the opportunity to be part of creating its future. It has been an honor to work with you, the mayor, and the many commissioners I served with over the years. Thank you once again for the support and the experiences I have gained during my time on the commission. I wish Morgan City continued success in its future endeavors." I just wanted to acknowledge Nathan for his 12 years of service and for the good work that he did, and as chair especially. And we appreciate him and he will be missed. But thank you to everyone else who has agreed to serve. So with that, we will jump right into the agenda. The first item is approval of minutes, and we have several tonight. We are looking to approve the minutes for October 21st, 2025 meeting, the November 18th, 2025 meeting, and the December 16th, 2025 meeting. First, are there any changes or discussion on those minutes? Has everyone had an opportunity to review them? They were included in the packet. Okay, if there is no discussion, I believe we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the following minutes. Those for the meeting held October 21st, 2025. Also the minutes of the meeting November 20th, 2025, and the minutes of the December 16th, 2025 meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that motion?
I second that.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Any discussion? All right, with that, we will take a vote. All in favor? That appears to be unanimous. Any opposed? Okay. The minutes are approved and we'll move on to agenda item number 1, which is a review and discussion of the city council land use priority list. Jake.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission. This list that is on the screen right here, in December, I believe, November and December, the mayor took a poll with the city council to kind of see where we should be focused. And this is the result in terms of ranking. So number 1 is land use table, which will actually start tonight. And then number 2, ordinance update to match general plan. That's a general term. There's a lot of things with that. And then number 2, in terms of ranking, looking at the RM15 zone. And then number 3, smaller lots on single family zone, discussion on that. And then also the notification process, and then the downtown area plan. So those 3 ranked in terms of priority. And then number 4, transportation plan, which is in progress. The UDOT has hired a consultant to do the State Street corridor from 700 East all the way to the south side of town. And then number 5, parks plan, and then also master plan community. And I will say the general plan is in progress, that is along with this. And we'll be bringing the general plan back to you next month. And if you approve, we'd like to do a open house or an open meeting in March. A public meeting on it, so present it. If you say it's ready. So, any comments from our council members on this list?
No, I think it's pretty much, identifies what we have some concerns with, so.
Yeah.
They're all important, Jake, and I know as I ranked the ones I felt were important, or, were more important, it was a little bit difficult. Some of it just depends, I think, on the moment. If we're working on a general plan, that's maybe an important one for the moment. If we're working on the downtown area plan, that's important for the moment. But it does give some direction in maybe an area that we could focus on. And again, you're starting on it tonight, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the Planning Commission on it?
Are there any of these that we are not working on that we need to more aggressively?
Well, the landscape ordinance, that's down on the list.
Okay.
That is something I would like to work on because I feel it's inadequate. And
This
then,
list is hard for my librarian brain because it's not in order.
Oh.
So, if we could. If we
the
could-
list is how the items were listed, how they voted,
Right.
and then it's not reordered.
It's not just me, right? That,
I see what you mean. I
yeah.
see what you mean.
If we were to reorder them and then we could go down and go working on it, that would be
Yeah,
great. But
and-
it does sound like we are working on the first couple.
Yes, we are. They're in progress. And the ordinance to match the general plan, that also includes the downtown ordinance, because as part of our downtown plan is a downtown ordinance. So as soon as we adopt the general plan, we'll go right into that. And other items are more discussion to figure out direction.
It kind of off topic, but it's still land use oriented. Remember the naming thing where we passed along some names to the city council and then it was gonna go to the community or something?
For the plaza
Yeah.
and the alley,
Yeah,
that is something that,
that play out.
yeah, we have some on our end to take it out to the public for a vote. So we'll get to that.
The, well, I just
Do you have a
had,
new name?
I just had more thoughts. Just
Oh,
because,
let's hear it.
like, I feel like and we might have talked about it, I can't remember, I forget sometimes, but it seems like with the train stop thing and Farmington Station and Morgan Station, like, it seemed like that made sense to me.
Morgan Station.
Or something in that realm of a train stop station plus like a commerce type
Yeah,
center, like,
I think some of those were on there.
I think they were. I remember station, I remember Whistle Stop. There were a couple that were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roll by.
random sidetrack.
Yep. Okay. And the plaza, obviously you've seen it, the concrete work is done. And the shade cell poles are up and the planter and it's plumbed for the gas fire pit. But the rest of that will finish in the spring. Landscaping and all the details will be in the spring.
So spring now.
Yeah. Have they been able
Calendar spring, not actual temperature spring.
have they been able to make more progress than was anticipated though with the
They
mild
did,
winter?
they actually took good advantage of the weather.
Good.
So there's one highlight to a dry, warm winter.
Yeah.
So,
Wonderful.
okay, anything else?
Further?
Right, we can move on.
Agenda item number 2, discussion on land use classification table and definitions.
Just 1 minute on that. So this was just a kind of start, you could say, of looking at it. Teresa and myself spent some time, and I'm going to pull up the report that you received last week.
And you talked to Jake about maybe doing an overview of several of the suggestions tonight, and then we will see it in the future to dig in more deeply to
yeah.
specific areas, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting. Okay. What's interesting about this is it's a lot of little decisions together in the form of the code. So in my report, I asked the Planning Commission to consider some questions. What land uses are no longer relevant or outdated and should be removed? We have a few odd ones there. What land uses are currently listed as conditional, but could reasonably be permitted by right? We have some of those. I mean, when someone comes in with a conditional use, the city needs to have the conditional uses in the code. And if it meets the conditions, then you say, yes, that's state law. It's changed over the last 5 years. It used to be conditional use was more like, I like it, I don't like it, a lot of leeway. Now it's yes allowed or not allowed based on what are the conditions and what's reasonable. So there's probably some things that move more into the permitted use.
Can I just say on that?
Yes.
So the assumption by the legislature is that there is always something, if you put a conditional use in a particular zone, the assumption is that there is always something that can mitigate the negative impacts of that. Whether it be redirecting the light away from the other properties, whether it be stopping the sound from going through, putting up sound walls, whatever. If you put it in as a conditional use, the assumption is there's almost nothing that can stop it from going in because there's always something you can do to mitigate the negative impacts. So the good thing is to look at those and take as many of those out as you can. Because if you can't imagine a situation, even one situation where that should be allowed in the zone, take it out. Take it out.
When I saw this list, I instantly thought of Ray, knowing how comprehensive Ray is at going through and making comments on things.
It was a nightmare.
Oh, apologize, but I thought
Ray would
We're in good
speak
hands.
for all of us, probably.
Yes, okay. Another question is there something that's permitted that should be conditional use? I think that's a lesser likely, but it could happen as well. And then what land uses could be combined into broader categories? You know, there's some specific things that, does it really stand alone? You know, if you're selling stickers and somebody else is selling the covers that go around license plate, does that matter that you need a store for those two? Retail is retail, restaurants are restaurants, and so there's certain things where we can just combine them. And then what land uses are missing or underrepresented? So is there technology? Things are, you know, a different marketplace, a different world. And so we're missing some land uses. And that happens sometimes where we'll get application and it's like, oh, this isn't even in our code. How do we respond to that? So any questions on that? Questions on questions?
Yeah, there's a question general question for Gary on this concept. If something's not listed and somebody comes in and wants that item, is it automatically denied or could they still apply for it? Just because we didn't list it, does that mean it's deniable?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And they kind of screwed things up a little bit at the legislature last year when they put into play a bill that said essentially that those decisions are appealed to the city council as administrative decisions. But anyway, so I've been working with them to fix that this year and to pattern it after what Morgan does. What Morgan does is if somebody comes in with a use like, for example, a residential use that's kind of like what everybody else does in the neighborhood anyway, residential neighborhood, then, but it's not specifically listed, you can go to the zoning administrator, who is Jake. Jake is the zoning administrator. Ask him for his opinion on it. If he says, yes, this is like that, and this is something that should be included in a residential use, then you take it off and they can come in and get that. If they don't, if Jake says, no, that's nothing like this, this is so different that it's just not like that, then the appeal goes to, that ends. There's no chance of putting that into play unless you come to the city council and request a change in the ordinance itself to add that as a use. And so this year at the legislature, that's probably the way it'll read by the end of the legislative session. But that's what we do in Morgan, is if the zoning administrator says no, then it will go to the council if the person wants it to, as a change in the zoning ordinance, which goes through you first and then to the council.
A couple of years ago, we had an application for an ice vending machine. And that was like, okay, what is this? And we found it close enough to retail and kiosks because we had both of them and we just kind of combined those uses and it worked out. Did you have another one, right?
I don't know how to quite term this one. It seems like in the past, there are some businesses that we would definitely not want to be here. Some risky businesses.
Right.
And we said, if they weren't listed, that doesn't mean they couldn't come. I thought I remembered that. We don't list those and say no. If they're not listed, that means Jake can say, no, they're not listed, so no, you can't come.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's better to list them as not permitted if there's certain things you don't want.
Well, if they're,
Or-
the way that we
What
do it is just the opposite, because
what Gary's saying, if they're not there.
it's not listed, not in
it's
your
not
list.
listed,
Yeah.
Then you can't approve it.
But you do need to have a little bit of flexibility there, because some are so close
Yeah.
that, they should be listed, because
Right, I
it's
get
so
that- I
much
get
like
that
that.
part.
But I give you an example in St. George. I did a hearing officer thing for vape shops, because St. George decided that they didn't want vape shops anywhere in the city. And they insisted that it was included in just your regular commercial businesses. But St. George said, no, it's different enough. Vape shops that we can say, no, it's not listed, you can't do it. And so that went all the way to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sustained St. George in their saying, this is not like that. And so if it is kind of like that, the city's usually pretty reasonable in allowing it to come in, because you're not going to get everything, right? Boy, there's thousands of things it could be. But if it definitely is something different, can. Remember, you can always, this is what St. George did. They did the emergency ordinance because there's a health safety issue. And so that stopped all applications in their processes while they looked at that situation. That's if that has to be an emergency situation. You can also stop something that you don't want from happening from any future applications coming in for 160 days for you to be able to address something that you see as new. This is new. We didn't anticipate that this is coming into Morgan. We want to take a look at it, hold everything, and you can do that for 160 days. So I hope that helps. Too much information. But
Jake, I'm dying to ask a question. I apologize, but so Gary, are you better off to actually create a zone where you may not want one of these types of businesses, a vape shop? Well, I know down in Centerville, they've been battling over tattoo parlors or an SOB of some sort. It's like, are you better off to create a zone for that? Put that zone somewhere where you are comfortable with it, or just not worry about it?
Well, there's some uses that are sensitive because of their First Amendment implications. Sexually oriented business is a good example of that. And so most cities find a place for them, but usually it's so remote, like it's out in an industrial area or something like that. But they find a place for them because they don't want the argument to be made that they're violating their First Amendment rights, that type of thing. But for most uses, you can say that, no, this is not a use we want in Morgan City. And you can actually deny putting any use that you don't think is legitimate in there. So you're not better off just those First Amendment type uses, which are very limited. And just so you know, the Supreme Court thought that even a vape shop was something that a person doesn't just have a right to come in, put in your jurisdiction. So.
But Morgan City doesn't currently have an area designated for that type of thing.
For sexually oriented businesses? I don't think so.
I think the county does, but.
Yeah. Yeah, the bigger, so.
Well, they can have Morgan's then.
Yeah,
Okay, should we move on?
sorry. Okay.
So these are some uses that, as I look through the code, that we might be missing to consider. Co-working spaces, like a shared office where a business that has multiple offices. And also related to that is flex space, but we do have some flex space. Like maker spaces, small scale fabrication where it's light in terms of not making a lot of pollution, noise, heavy impact, but assembling, making things. And then we're a little bit light on some food production, specifically like a commercial kitchen. If somebody wanted to run some kind of like catering business, but not have a restaurant. Another one is food halls, although we may not be big enough for food halls, but those are coming around. It's the old mall food court coming back in a new cool way, but they're in Salt Lake and other places. I don't know that Morgan's really big enough for these, but it could happen. Is small fulfillment centers, like a little mini Amazon warehouse, or last mile delivery goes there and then it goes out through Morgan County. EV charging as a principal use. I don't know if we would see that, but that's not in one of our uses. If somebody, just like you have a gas station, if they wanted to have electrical charging, recycling of materials. And then we're a little bit light on mixed use in terms of mixing residential and commercial.
Did you have a question, Ray?
Some of those uses, for example, the EV charging facility, would actually need a permit to do that, or could the service station just put that, install that in?
I think a gas station, well,
Yeah.
we'd have to look at our ordinance related to gas stations and just see.
If a gas station wanted to install that as part of their services, would they need a special separate permission to do that?
Only if we call it out as needed.
Hmm.
And that same question on some of these others you mentioned, I'm trying to visualize why would they need a special permit to do some of these?
They might, but I'm just saying these are things that are not typical in our current code.
Okay.
Okay. So. Oh, that was my letter. Hold on, let me. Oh, that, okay. I'm gonna pull this up in Excel because I had it there. So,
God bless you for doing all this.
okay,
So.
So-
The blessing.
let me we'll throw out some of these. Let me run through this quick and then let's go back and discuss the ones they want. Accessory farm building. I don't know do we need that just for a farm building compared to just an accessory building? Accessory building's like a shed. Does it matter if it's used for farm uses? Ray?
That's a couple of just general questions to start with. I see this broken into groups, like this residential group. And then there's a industrial group. This residential group, that's in our business and manufacturing area. Help me understand that section of residential uses in our manufacturing commercial areas. Does that mean I can come in with a permit and acquire one of these things, or mean I have to have an existing home to do one of these things? You were talking about
It's allowing residential in the commercial zones.
Do I have to already have a residential there, or can I take a piece of land and build a house on a piece of ground in the commercial zone?
You cannot build a single family in a commercial zone. But if like in self-storage, we do allow some units in there and some of the storage units in town to have residential, sometimes,
Caretaker.
yeah, as a caretaker, as an accessory use.
I'm just trying to sort out how I analyze this form.
Yep.
It's a bit.
This is pulled straight from our code.
I know.
This is the
I
town
wonder how
code.
much we need to change it, if we still need a residential section of uses in the commercial areas.
I think it's okay because, I mean, there is a residential purpose in a lot of zones. Not always, but sometimes, like in our CC zone, we allow for mixed residential.
Right. So if I was a building, can I take a business and turn it back into a home?
If it's an existing, like if one of these houses on State Street, and if a business were in there, and you want to convert it back, I think you could. But what you couldn't do is go build a new single-family home.
Okay. The reason I asked that is some people tried to do that before, and we told them they couldn't. And so with this code, I'm trying to understand how this code actually functions. And
Have we had that, Teresa, where the people want to take businesses back to houses.
Yeah,
So,
we've had where they've taken a residential home. It is in like a commercial general on State Street. It was a house. That was its primary use as a residential. But then they converted it to a commercial building. And after it's changed to a commercial use, right here it says we can't have, single-family residential dwellings are not permitted. So it couldn't go back to a single-family residential.
okay.
And
But it says right here that
Yeah, there we
they're
go.
not permitted.
Non-conforming to conforming, and you can't take it back to
We
non-conforming.
can't take it back to non-conforming. Even though you're not really changing the shell of the structure,
Right,
but
it's the
Okay,
use.
it's the use.
Okay, so this section here under residential, then before we get down to the industrial area, all those uses were saying, if you have an existing home or lot, you could do these things in an existing residential lot or home. Is that what we're saying?
I think it's on a little bit on the case by case basis.
Not if it's permitted, how you do case by case was permitted.
Well, what specific part or did you want to talk about?
Oh,
Okay, here's the residential. Oh, that's where we started. So accessory farm building,
I'm just kidding, as a group, so nitpicking one at a time, as a group, are we saying those things apply to someone that already has a house on that particular lot, even though it's in commercial areas? I'm just trying to wrap my mind around so I can help analyze it further
Yeah.
down the road.
yeah.
We're saying that those residential areas there.
You get the question, Gary?
And,
I'm not sure I completely, if you'll rephrase your,
Basically, concept of the whole group, so
Yeah,
everything on
yeah,
page
yeah,
one.
that's what
is
I'm
the
wondering
same.
about, yeah.
And everything, it continues on in page 2 until you get to recreational uses. So he's looking at each status, residential being one, recreational uses being one.
Institutional,
Buckets.
yeah,
yeah, the buckets.
And then what he's saying is the entire bucket itself, because the columns are commercial,
Yeah,
correct? You're saying the relevancy of commercial within the residential bucket. Like, this way.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to sort that out.
well, in some case, I mean, because residential is allowed, then the uses are allowed if it's appropriate.
Let's go ahead and go through your presentation, I'll talk to you
So
after from there.
two that we need to take out of there are the elderly housings or elderly.
Right here.
um,
Elderly apartments, we have that as a use,
The elder.
and
the
foster home.
Residential facilities for handicapped persons
Yes,
and residential facilities for the elderly.
that's why I had them highlighted.
Yeah, they have to, their
That,
state law has required that those be taken out, so.
yeah, that would be considered discrimination.
Under the Fair Housing Act, so.
Yeah,
You can't ask age. You can't.
No, and you can actually put a residential facility for handicapped persons or for elderly persons in a neighborhood.
you could put it anywhere.
Anywhere, in any residential area.
This is.
And also group homes for like a treatment center
You put them in a
for
commercial
teenagers
area,
that need treatment. It can go anywhere by state law.
Any commercial area as well.
They could go in a commercial, well, okay, so they can go anywhere where regular residences are allowed. So, because they're saying they're like a family, you know, they're the trips, the number of beds, that type of thing. It's just like a family. So they can't be allowed in zones that they're not allowed. Like, for example, a commercial zone, if you don't allow residential in there. But wherever residential is allowed, you'd have to allow it.
And we're talking about the commercial areas right now.
Yep. Yes. So these are the four zones we're looking at. Commercial general,
Right.
which is State Street area, central commercial, which is a little bit of state, commercial street, and also 125. Highway commercial, CH, so that runs along the freeway, particularly like where the dealership is. And then manufacturing, which is where like the foam building, anything west of McDonald's area. So
And he's saying, why would there even be a bucket called residential?
well, because residential uses are allowed in these zones.
If they exist.
Well, they're also allowed by right in some cases. So not just single family, but also you can do mixed use, townhomes, other things in some of these zones as well. It's a use within commercial. Okay, so some things to consider.
Go ahead.
Home occupation, I mean, whether you're working from a townhome or apartment or single family, does it really matter if the home occupation meets the city code? Household pets, that seemed odd. We have other ordinances for that. Live work, it's only in the CG zone as a conditional, but we do have some kind of live work in other zones, just under a different name. Mobile home park is interesting because we have an existing mobile home park, but it's not permitted. And multifamily, that is permitted in the CC zone, but not on the State Street zone, but the downtown plan calls for that. Mixed use building, again, the same thing, that is permitted. In the CC zone, multifamily is permitted on a second story or above and behind. And the idea is to really activate those spaces, provide additional housing in the core. And then secondary residential. This is a question, is it more like an ADU or a secondary? In cases like Commercial Street, there's some apartments behind some little ones. Maybe that's a better application in terms of why is that there? Single family is not permitted in the commercial zones as attached or as detached. And also two family.
So if I have an existing home, I can't do an ADU with my existing home in Commercial Street.
Correct. That was our intention with the ADU ordinance when we did it. Because we didn't want to perpetuate the single family use. The idea is to convert it into something else.
Remind me, does that go all the way down Commercial Street or does it stop?
The zone?
Family homes start.
Want me to pull that up? Just 1 second. Here you go. So here's the CC in yellow. And then here's the CG on State Street. And then kind of almost no color this is the MD. And then highway commercial right here where the dealership is. And then we also have it on the north side of the freeway, no development there. And then down here by the gravel pit. Does that help? Kind of visualizing where they're.
So Aaron, your question is further down Commercial Street, that's
Yeah, that's okay.
where
That's-
those residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back here.
if those were, because I understand you have them grouped in buckets. And the buckets are semi-accurate, semi not. Just the fact that it says residential is kind of the category of things. And it's got airport in the category.
That's when we switched to institutional and special services.
Okay, switch category.
A new category,
Or
a new bucket.
maybe community center.
A new group.
Better example.
You think that's a better name?
No, I'm just saying, I
Good.
think just the intermix of the different terms within the bucket called residential.
Yeah.
I think that's just confusing the way it's being analyzed.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if it's residential.
We could remove all the group categories. Could be alphabetical.
Doesn't matter, it's still the use. I think that's what's confusing.
Yeah, okay,
Is the random bucket name.
yeah. And we can change that, or we can leave it, however you'd like. Okay, the next category, institutional and special services, airport and heliport. I don't really see airport coming to Morgan, but a heliport actually is viable in terms of, who knows if the idea of the whole Uber, jump on a little helicopter and fly over to Salt Lake International or Ogden Airport, how far out that is. I hear they do helicopter rides over at Wasatch Peaks all the time. And so having a designated place could be a good thing. Either you have a designated place or you don't. So that's something there. We have church and temple as a conditional, even though as a religious building, it could go anywhere under federal law. We have community use, which Teresa and myself were like, what does that mean? Kind of yeah. So sometimes things that are so generic, like, I want to apply for a community use. Okay, well, what is that? And then we've got convent, monastery. Are those necessary? And then group dwelling for religious community.
Wouldn't that potentially be covered by church?
That's like if the Amish wanted to come and have I don't know. But yes, what makes it different is the dwelling part.
Okay.
That's where it's different than a church. But is it a use that we need? As Gary has mentioned, elderly apartments, that should come out. Foster home should come out. Fraternity or fraternal benevolent society. I don't know that we need that. Halfway house or similar facility.
Well,
There's home for elderly, so we have it
Fraternal
twice.
Benevolent Society, if somebody wanted to build an Elks Lodge or something, we could.
Yeah,
I mean,
But do you need it, is the use for the building or is the use for what makes it so different?
yeah, I don't know.
Could be non-profit, gathering place.
Yeah,
I don't know.
or could just be a bar. Depends on how they plan to use it.
Like the Elks Lodge, yeah. Institution of religious or philanthropic nature. And our question was, how is that different than a church? And again, we have home for elderly twice. Nursing home, I think having a use for assisted living is probably good. It is unique enough that could have everything assisted living related next to it. Playground, does that need to actually be listed as a use?
May I ask a question? I'm sorry again.
Yeah.
To interrupt. Halfway house or similar facility. Gary, isn't that going back a few years to an incident we had here? I mean,
Same thing.
same thing.
Yeah.
You've got to allow it, correct?
Yeah, you're right. That would be correct. The only thing that
Because
would be
of-
prohibited is a lockdown type facility, where they
but it's a protected class, right? So you'd have to allow it.
It's protected under the Fair Housing Act is where it's protected.
So should we have it on the use, and then as conditional and try to steer it, or is it permitted with uses, or is it not on there at all?
I would take it off.
Okay, a lot of cities will have group dwelling,
Yeah, it's.
which is, it
they're
is a group
governed by
dwelling.
by the state, by
Yeah.
the license issued by the state as to how many they can have in there and that type of thing. So they're not conditional.
So you could just say group dwelling, see state code,
Yeah. Or just take it out.
or just take it out. Okay,
Community use too is a very common category for all religious, educational, governmental type things. And it's actually defined in our code. It says the uses which have primary purpose of serving educational, recreational, religious, or governmental needs of the community in general. And it says such uses may include churches, public and private education institutions, private nonprofit recreation grounds, public parks, public buildings, public facilities, cemeteries, and other similar uses. So community uses covers a lot of these types of uses. That,
we already have those in.
yeah, the separate designation for churches, temples, and that type of thing are all covered by community use in most jurisdictions.
So we could keep community use and put everything, those
Right.
uses into, that's a way to do it as well.
But that's common in just about every jurisdiction that I am familiar with has community uses.
Okay. Private school. We also have a commercial school as well. You'll notice private school is allowed as a commercial use, but public school is not. And then residential facility for elderly persons. That seems to be a common theme in different ways. And then there's the residential facility for handicapped persons. And then, so that's that category. And then utility related. So a new category, business office for utility transportation systems. Sounds like an office for a trucking company. Distribution elements for utility and transportation service systems. Railroad tracks and right-of-way. My question was, do we have any power to regulate railroad?
No.
No, we don't. Support facilities for utility transportation systems. Sounds a little bit like the other one, but also a little confusing. Maybe something like a mechanic shop for a trucking company. I don't know. Okay, recreation uses. We have amusement and arcade. Does that need to be like an arcade? I don't need to be a conditional use. Athletic, tennis, swim club. Something on these I think is pretty common is what we're seeing like with pickleball. There's now a pickleball place in Mountain Green, and quite a few of those in Ogden. So in this case, it's not in our MD, but a lot of times they are showing up in manufacturing and industrial because warehouses. It's the right kind of building for those.
How do we help?
How do we what?
How do we help people? I know we can go through this whole thing and see the word confusing over and over.
Yes, you are right. Yes.
So overwhelming that it would be my part-time job for a while to give you a sufficient response.
Well, my question is, how do you want to go about it? We could come back to you with a recommendation, spend the time going through this, consolidate it, all of that, and then give you a draft ready to go. if there's certain things that you want to talk about, you could do that as well. This is kind of the beginning, and I'm here to guide and facilitate with the planning commission. But also it's how do you want to go through it? This was a good start exercise, at least for me to go through and be like, okay, let's highlight everything that has a question mark, and there was a few.
You did an amazing job. You could continue to impress us if we went down that hole.
It's true.
Impressive. I do think it's worthwhile for us to look through this. That doesn't necessarily need to be in an open meeting, but just on our own time to look through, see if there are specific things that jump out, questions like Ray brought out, you know, if we'd like to see this organized differently. But I love the idea of if we do our homework and take a look at this and let you know if there's anything specific, that you guys come back to us with recommendations that we can dig a little deeper on. Any other thoughts? What do you
So
think?
you're saying you want the planning commission to come back?
No, I want you and Teresa to
Okay,
bring
okay,
us some
okay. Thanks
recommendations.
for clarifying that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, happy to do that.
Just a little background on this is there's been several times in the last 18 years, we've tried to do this as a commission, and it is overwhelming. And it is a classification table. I'm thinking the last time it was amended was in 2007.
Oh,
It's
wow.
been a long time. So,
Ooh.
and these uses were on here originally in the general plan in 1999, I'm sure. I don't know. It's old.
It feels like if we took it in bite-sized chunks, like, I don't know, you know, I mean, maybe we could look at 10 at a time, and we could just put our
Like a category.
commercial zone hat on and just be like, okay, let's just see if we can make 10 of them better than they were before. Then the next meeting, we'll work on another 10. I feel like it needs time and proper consideration, and I think spreading it out in some way over time, we may get better than it was in 2007. It seemed like we worked at the general plan for a really long time, piece by piece. And it just seems like this is a little mind numbing, and you gotta kind of just go there and get through it. And if we did it piece by piece, maybe we could, if we walked out of here with 10 fun, good answers for you versus 50 lines of confusion, I think we'd be more helpful to you to say, we did something.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
We can come back with a few sections and say we'd like to do this with, and I do think that when you make a recommendation on this to the council, we send it as a whole,
Mhm.
not in, because it's all connected, right? How many times is the elderly in there? It's like, well, let's fix all of that and just have a single. And there's some cases like camera shop, that really doesn't need to be on there. Retail could cover a lot of different things. I don't even think it needs to be electronics. I do think one particular fast food, what I was thinking was, does Morgan City really care if it's a sit down that you order at your table, or you order when you walk in, or you order from your phone? Probably not. But I think we do care on the drive-through part. Is a drive-through allowed? Is it not allowed? If it is allowed, how is it allowed? For example, on Commercial Street, I think, you know, there's a debate, should drive-throughs be allowed or not allowed on Commercial Street? But also, one question could be, if the building is right up against the sidewalk, and so we don't have cars going back and forth. I mean, that would kill Commercial Street really quick if you have all these drive-through, you know, like the McDonald's, if that had all those lanes in between the building and the sidewalk, you destroy that walkability and that frontage. You know, that's what makes Commercial Street neat. But there are some cases where drive-through doesn't seem to hurt it, like Larry's Chicken or something like that. And it's how it's done. That drive-through is way different than McDonald's with 3 windows and multiple cars and space.
Is that more a situation of space than zone area? a drive-through?
Well, I think it's a matter of splitting out the different types and looking at it in terms of design. And so that's where we would maybe split out.
But I hear you say, I mean, I agree with that. Isn't that more based on design and space, a lot available, rather than the zone it's in?
Well, I think I would say Morgan City should be intentional in how you want Commercial Street to be, and the zoning should reflect it.
Would some of that already be covered by the historic overlay?
Yes. Yeah, the historic
Was it
overlay.
redundant,
could-
or is it supportive if we include it?
Well, the uses dictate what's allowed, and if,
But
when looking at fast food, if it's, it's not about fast food, it's about drive-throughs and how drive-throughs are allowed in the city and where are they allowed.
right,
So in that case, we just switch to a restaurant use.
in my mind, as I look at the whole of Commercial Street, I don't see where we can put any drive-throughs anyway.
There's places, it still could happen.
Well,
There's some-
currently it is, they're doing a drive-through in one of the new buildings.
Yep.
In the hotel.
So this is another option, this looks and you see something that's pretty old. I mean, there is another option is maybe looking at other cities and how their classification tables are. For example, I was, in my community was going over what their planning commission was doing, and it was a conditional use permit to find out in their code how they did commercial conditional uses were actually by size and not by use. A lot size, which I thought was unusual, but there is different options. Are so outdated that it'd be better to look at like another community and see how they handle their uses? Or should we work with what we have? I mean, that's another option. I'm not saying go for that, but that's something you could consider.
With Jake's background, I think, Jake can answer that for us, whether there's others that are better formats or not.
I think ours is a lot of cities are pretty close to what we have. I think in terms of structure, I think where we're outdated is what's under the hood and the different uses and things like that. Teresa has a good point. There are some different ways to look at the size of building or other.
So where would you like us to go from here?
Well, that's the question that I would ask you but I could come back with the draft.
Have the word zones pictured up on the thing and, we know where commercial general is, we know where commercial central is, it's visual, it's easy to see. And you've got, 10 topics, we're gonna figure out if the request is for a fire station, right? And it's like, okay. And you say to yourselves, okay, planning commission, look here. And we all look and we think fire station. Would I allow there? Sure. Would I allow it there? Sure. Would I allow there? Sure. Done. Fire station, next topic. And if we say, no, I wouldn't put a fire station there, then we don't fill out. Then we move on to the church and temple. And I think we could actually get it done for you if it were kind of a little visual with maybe 40 choices.
Okay. So there's some that we could come back, I think, that are obvious, like
First,
all the elderly.
Yes.
Let's just combine all those and stick them in an assisted living.
Yeah, maybe
Category.
maybe just maybe you have a top 20 list.
Yeah, I would know which ones are worth debating and which ones are not.
That could be helpful.
So you'll see we have kennel boarding and then we have kennels private. But I think a question on kennels, that is a good question. Do we want kennels allowed in the city? And if so, where? And all that. So there are some of those that are certainly worth discussing. A locksmith, I think we'd be okay with as a business, could almost go anywhere.
Gary mentioned in our definitions, there's a called commercial use. It lists lots of uses. Is it possible to go with definitions broad enough to cover multiple of these and take them all off the chart?
Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
yes,
Yeah,
I think
that's commercial. I
absolutely.
appreciate you bringing that up, mention that. Then the definition for commercial use, it includes churches, education facilities, both private and public. It provides recreational grounds, it provides parks, public buildings, cemeteries. It covers a bunch of those. Can we put a definition together and take out all those that apply under that definition?
Yes, we can.
So do we want to pursue that? and put it back?
Retail is a good category for
There are
that.
other definitions like a
Uh,
retail category.
A hospital and medical, that could be a category.
So explain those as definitions and how one category under the definition of that group, because that's a direction we want to go. That's not a direction, that's not my directive, that's a question for us. The next question is, what's going to be easiest for staff to then, when the application comes in to review? Would you rather have a list of 25 to a list of 175 with definitions that support those categories?
I think so. That's why we're bringing this to you. There may be a few cases where things are so unique.
Right, and I get that. I'm not saying everything, but is that a concept that would work for staff down the road? Because some of us may never be here to see anything
Yeah.
come before.
But Teresa, what do you think?
Staff can
You
have to
see a
do it
lot
down
of,
the road.
you see the applications first.
If somebody brings an application for a barber shop, would you rather see barber shop listed here, or would you rather see a definition talking about retail businesses and have a list of those within that retail business rather than having all of them listed here? Does that make sense what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah.
Teresa, what do you think?
That could be beneficial, just like Gary had just had the community use. And then the definition actually told you what a community use is. Do we have, what do I want to say, like barbershops and beauty salons and all that stuff
Nails.
named as
Could be a category.
self-care category or
Yeah,
Sometimes you have all those in one deal.
you could have auto uses and just have a definition of what they are rather than listing all those out.
staff's challenges is that, we look at it and we look at the category and then we want to say, what impact is this for the community? And that helps when you decide what category it is, but
This is just me. I'm speaking as the general public here, but I'm going, what do you want to spend your time on as a planning commission? Because you have a lot of different issues that you could discuss. I've always gone from the philosophy of it, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Because you can take a lot of time on fixing things that are not broken. And so I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if you want to dedicate a whole lot of time to going through all of these uses when the number of discrepancies we've had at Teresa's desk over whether this use is this type of thing, whether it should be in a commercial zone or whatever, are almost nil. That's probably the thing she probably has least questions on, is what use can I put in this zone? And if it's wrong, we generally fix it real quick. We add new uses as they come out. Like there's new types of things. The vape shops was a good example. We examined that. We examined some of the new uses that are coming about as a result of AI and some other things. And we added those, but to go back over each of these and consolidate and put them together and maybe define some and that type of thing. My recommendation would be to first address any illegal uses that we've got in there that should not be there. And we'll take all those out. We need to do that to make it consistent with state code. And look at any uses that might be illegal as a result of the changes they've made up at state code. So that's number one priority, is to get rid of anything that's illegal in your use. The second thing, if you really wanted to spend time on it, is look at your conditional uses, which ones you ought to get rid of and make permitted, make your life easier. But do you want to take time to go through all of the uses, change them, consolidate them, do that type of thing? It is going to take an inordinate amount of time for you to do that. And the question I have for you is, what do you want to spend, what do you need to spend your time on as a planning commission? And, you know, it would probably be the things that maybe Teresa has the most problem with at the counter, rather than things that,
The agenda item is to discuss land use certification tables, and we've done it.
I love that recommendation. I mean, obviously, we want to be compliant with state code, so we need to clean up anything that's illegal. I also think while you're doing that, it would be easy to clean up some of those redundancies and things like that. But yeah, how much more we need to comb through this, I'm not sure beyond that point.
I don't think it would be too much of a planning commission time for us to bring you a draft with,
Great.
and I think even tonight, we already have a feel for what the planning commission is thinking.
Yeah.
One recommendation we do have is actually to leave agriculture alone, knowing how much time we spend on chickens. That I was like, let's just leave.
I was thinking with your household pets, the
So-
chickens.
So, you know, we've got beekeeping and all these other things, that almost feels like a separate thing itself. And that's, it's not broken, don't fix it. So that was something that we were actually thinking is, let's just leave agriculture alone for now. But a lot of these other items, I think we could go through and bring you a recommendation.
I think that's.
Make sure we meet state code. And then things are obvious, like, do we need a category for shoes? I don't think so. You know, retail is one of those broad ones that we could put a lot under the retail umbrella.
I'm not suggesting we do that with everything. I think there's some categories that make sense to do it.
Yes.
Not everything.
So I could see a really interesting example. I've got a piece of property that's going for sale in an agricultural zone, but that either it's labeled wrong or the planning commission has a phenomenal vision, but residential is permitted. We don't have that as a topic, and I was kind of going back to the thing. And the reason why is because that community's growing and they can see that that area would make sense for residential. And so I thought it was interesting that I came into that and saw residential usage in an agricultural zone.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but our ag is paired with residential. So it falls under a different, bigger category, but we do allow residential and ag. And maybe it's because the ag is more on the perimeter of town, and right now you see more residential and ag mixes than you do commercial and ag.
Okay. Any further comments from the commission?
Can I drop one more mud ball for Jay?
Bring it on.
Not for us.
Lay it on us.
In my mind, I tried to take this CG zone, CC zone, CH zone, and MD zone. In my mind, I tried to then see how it related to the new master plan zones of DMU, MPC, LITF, ROC. I'm not sure how these zones even relate to the new ones. I don't know if we had a whole bigger catfish to which one of these are permitted, not permitted in the new master plan.
Yeah, so those are future land uses,
Yeah,
higher up in the planning cloud, a little bit
Yeah.
broader. And then these zones, as long as the zones have a way that they connect with the future land uses, then we're good. You don't have to pair laboratory with the light industrial or the recreation commercial. We just have to make sure that the zoning and future land uses have a connection. So when someone wants to come in and do a restaurant by the river and they're saying your general plan talks about this, then we have a connection and a path forward.
And that's my question is, do we? And that was where I was lost.
Uh,
I'm not sure that path exists, in my mind at least.
Okay.
These are so much different. The verbiage on these are so much different than the verbiage on what we currently have.
With the general plan, we're going,
I don't need an answer. I was just a mudball.
okay.
Okay, that is something to look at going
Yeah, I don't
forward.
need an answer.
Any further comments? Becky, anything? Okay. Jay, anything else? Do you feel like you have what you need to move forward, Jake?
I do.
Okay.
Teresa? Okay.
All right. With that, we
We'll do it
will
as a team.
consider that discussed.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone. We will adjourn the meeting.
Sure you guys.
It was fun.